I'm going to be the person that, like, if I ever were to win a Grammy, I would think that would validate me, but I'd be standing there accepting it, wondering if people were going to find out I'm a huge fraud.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's me here, Michael Franti, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Stay Human podcast. I say back because we've been on a bit of a hiatus. You've had a chance to listen to some of my favorite episodes from the last year and a half or couple years of recordings that we've done, some great conversations. And tonight or today or this morning or whatever it is for you in your part of the world right now, we're going to continue with these awesome conversations because I've got a Nashville native who began her songwriting career in her 20s, eventually landing a record deal on EMI Nashville and touring alongside some of country music's biggest names. With the 2020 launch of Apple Music Country, she is now recognized as the first female to anchor a national morning show in country music with the Kelleigh Bannen Show, a space where she shares her unique artist perspective and allows her guests a platform to share their own journeys, inspirations, and creative processes. So please welcome to the show. You guessed it. And as always, we want to thank Gibson Guitars for sponsoring us. This is the great Kelleigh Bannen. How you doing, Kelleigh?
Hi, Michael. That's just like an amazing and sweet way to welcome. So I wish I don't do this in interviews. I'm like, I should read out some lovely things about people right before I interview them because it's such a charming way to start.
It's funny when you start going through somebody's like list of accomplishments and you put them all in one paragraph, you're like, damn, like, you hear it back to yourself and you're like, God, I've actually done some shit, and it's kind of cool to do that for other people and let them hear back what all the things that they're known to the world for.
Yeah, it's sweet. And the thing that immediately I'm thinking about is, if you don't mind if I go right in where I am today, I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, what I'm thinking about is what I haven't accomplished.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, how do I hold that and like aspiration or the desire to be great and keep going with gratitude of like, even if you aren't where you want to be, you're still going and you've still done something.
Well, let's talk about that because I remember when I hit 20, I thought I had the world just completely figured out, and then I hit 30 and the world just like slapped me upside the face and was like, dude, you don't know shit. And then I hit 40 and I had that feeling like what you just described of like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Where have I gone? Where didn't I go? Why did I do that stupid thing? Why didn't I do that great thing? And then I hit 50 and things kind of started to like drop in a little bit like, all right, all I got to do is just like kind of show up and be me. But even at 50, I'm still trying to figure that out every day. So what does that mean, And so the pandemic actually was a time for me when I was like doing those deep soul dives of just like, why do I do this weird thing of like make these songs and hope that like people hear them and hope that I can, get out there and connect with other hearts who feel the same way in the world. And it's a very odd way to choose to make a living or earn a living. There's so many things that are so much easier than that. And when I feel that, that's when I start to feel like, damn, maybe why do I do this?
Why do you do it? Do you know, where are you now? Why do you do it?
I'll tell you why I do it. It's exactly that. It's in a word, it's togetherness, and I believe that first of all, that music is the sound of feelings and that when we share what we feel, that other people, it turns on a light for them inside them and they go, oh yeah, like I feel that way too. And so here's somebody who I've never met before, who's on a whole other side of the world, or I'm standing next to in a concert just by chance. And the song comes on and we both put our fists up in the air and we sing as loud as we can, out of tune. We turn and we high five each other because we know exactly what it is that's in our heart that we're feeling. And it could be about completely different things. Somebody might be losing their job or leaving their job. Next person might be just falling in love with somebody for the first time. But that same feeling comes up in the music. And that's what I get off on. And that's why I do it, is to bring people together.
I probably wouldn't have said togetherness, but I think we'd be talking about the same thing, which is connection. Yeah. And it's this antidote for lonely. Like, you're not alone. I'm not alone. We're the same. We're struggling with the same things, or even if it's slightly different flavors of the same things, it's that, that you are not alone kind of connection.
During the pandemic, did you spend a lot of time alone?
I spent a lot of time with my husband, and we've been married for 18 years. And there are times when you've been married that long.
What's his name, by the way?
His name's Jeff.
Okay.
And
what's up, Jeff? If you're listening,
I expect him to make some noise in the next room any minute and take the dogs on a walk. But it's almost like I think it's easy to take someone for granted who has been part of your orbit for so long. It's like. Yeah. So I wasn't, but what I found lonely about I had just started my new work with Apple. And so I was essentially learning a new job, which was, going from the other side of the microphone or making music myself to supporting other people in their, journey of making music. And so learning how to do that, but doing it in this little room, even though there were people that were doing it with me, it felt very lonely. And I think everyone felt that. And there were, I don't know if you were, are you writing via Zoom, or are you kind of more of a, I got to be in person kind of a guy?
I've done both. I've been writing via Zoom, and there's been some chances that I've had to be able to connect with a couple people. But, writing via Zoom, I thought would be a lot harder than it has been. Like, I was surprised at how much I was able to get accomplished just through conversation and just vulnerability. That's the thing that has been a cure for me during the loneliness of quarantine, is that I used to call my friends and go, "Yo, bro, what's up?" And they go, "Yo, bro, what's up? You guys, ready to go to band rehearsal? Yeah, let's go band." But now it's like, "Yo, bro, how you feeling?" And they're like, "Oh, it's all." And I go, "No, like, really, like, how you feeling? Like, what's going on in your life? Tell me about it." And so I've connected in ways that I didn't before, and that's made me actually feel a deeper connection to all of my relationships and helped me feel less lonely, even though there's this distance. And then just going back to the songwriting part of it, it's like, how it is when you find those like truths, those little truth bombs that are in your life that like, oh man, like, and you write about them. That's how the Zoom connection has actually worked.
Yeah, it's harder for me, and I find there's some people that seem to be really able to like drop into that real kind of play. I think that's the thing. It's like when the screen is a barrier to you being yourself with someone, which is what's so essential in the room, when you're writing. And so I think some days are easier than others. But I love that this has been a season of, when we do that thing, oh, hey, how are you? What's up? Just pausing, just waiting one more little millisecond, and we're doubling down and going, really? Are you good? Yeah. And it's just the other thing.
I sure as hell ain't.
Yeah. Because I'm having another existential crisis over here.
What is this thing that you got going on that I need some of?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This show is all about this belief that I have that there's no one that you wouldn't love if you knew their story, and this morning I was talking to my wife about, you coming on the show today. And I was like, I don't really know Kelleigh's music that much. But I've been doing this deep dive, and I love her songs, and I love her voice. And she's like, I can feel the passion in what she does. And I said, this is going to be one of those times where I just hear someone's story and go, oh, I really dig this person, So I want to go way, way back. Tell me about where you were born. What was your family like that you were brought into as a kid?
So I grew up here in Nashville, like about a mile, for the most part, like about a mile from where I live now, which is wild. I was actually born in Michigan,
that's really
but cool. I grew up not in like a family that was in the music business, but a lot of Nashville is. And so you are kind of always around it. Like the guy that comes to fix the toilet is a demo back in the day, a demo singer, or like singing jingles. That used to be such a thing. Like college kids at Vandy would be singing jingles to try and get discovered. And so every babysitter and every person that like came to the house, or, you know, so many of my friends' parents were songwriters or producers. So it was very much like, it had never occurred to me that there were places where music or making a life in music wasn't like a viable career or like life option. And so in that way I was very unique. Like Nashvillians get kind of a very unique.
Because most people grow up in households where it's like, you want to do what? You're going to join a band and like grow your hair out and like drive around what do you do? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But you were brought up in this house where that was like, oh, that's like,
it's around. Like, I mean,
yeah.
Nashville's such a song town. And even though my parents were kind of like scratching their heads a little bit, and I think I'm going to guess about your story, but I'd love to hear the truth too. But it's that thing where like, I think of music as, and I hope that this doesn't sound sad, but I think of music as like the great unrequited love. Yeah. It's like always just, it's so nearly in reach, but it's also out of reach all the time. Yeah. And so it's that thing where once you start to get that magic under your skin and in your heart, it's just relentless. I can't imagine not having at least tried to make my life about music. Once I mean, I just even remember back in the day, like in the 90s, I would have my alarm clock radio set to the radio station. So the music would actually wake you up. Did you ever have one of these?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, and there'd be days when like a certain song would wake me up and it would almost like, I can't describe the feeling perfectly, but it's some combination of wonder meets like freaking you out a little bit. Like, oh, that thing that when that a magic, song,
that soul.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and it just touches you. It shakes you. It scares you a little bit. Makes you feel known, makes you curious, all those things. So I think once that kind of happened, then it was just about how do I actually get into this world? And for me and my particular story, so much of it is about the ways that I don't feel good enough to be at any given table. And the healing that's had to sort of happen for me to, it's like, I'm going to be the person that like, if I ever were to win a Grammy, I would think that would validate me, but I'd be standing there accepting it, wondering if people were going to find out I'm a huge fraud. And so understanding that's just true about myself and like trying to like continue to make music in the knowledge that I am not the best musician that's ever been born. That doesn't mean I don't have a story worth sharing and worth, you know, chasing to try and, you know, write music that connects for people. Something like around that is kind of where I live.
I get that. Absolutely. Because, you know, even at this stage where I'm at, where I've been making music, making records since 1987, and I still think of myself as like, oh God, I'm not really like a musician. I'm not, you know, there's other people who are like trained and they've studied to do it, or they were gifted with this incredibly acrobatic voice, or they were stars the minute they put their first, you know, note on a record, they blew, you know, and there's always something in the back of me that goes like, yeah, I'm not that, you know, and it's only been recently that I've really like been able to like kind of step into it and go, okay, this is what I do. And ironically, it's because I also run a hotel. We have a family hotel that we run here in Bali. And it's like I look at my life as a hotelier and I'm like, I'm really a rookie. Like I've been doing it 10 years, but I'm really still a rookie. Music, I'm like, you know, I've been earning my living doing that for a while. So it's, there is like that sense of like, I'm faking it somehow. And for me, when I was a kid, I used to listen to the radio like you described. And it was like, if I was in love with this girl in my 4th grade class, but I couldn't talk to my parents about it, which I couldn't talk to my parents about anything, I would listen to a song on the radio and that song would like go, oh my God, like that's everything that I feel about this crush that I have. And it would like bring me to tears, and then I'd feel different. Like I'd leave my room feeling like, oh wow, I'm like healed. And what was it like for you? Like, I want to go back a little bit further. Like, what did your parents do? What was your house like? Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah. So sometimes that thing happens where you share a certain part of your story so much that at times it feels like it's made up when you talk about it. There's almost like a disembodiment. And so I just want to say that, like, I'm going to try and be in the moment while I talk about this. But
well, it's new to me, so
yeah. Well, so I mean, sometimes you just don't know what's actually happening in your house until much later.
Yeah.
And I think, I am a chronically late bloomer. And so there's some of that where I just didn't know. And there was a lot of isolation and there was a lot of not okay. And so I, as an adult, so early 20s, as I got married really young. Honestly, my husband and I talk really openly about how, like, so much of that was just culture. We're from the South, from kind of traditional Christian homes where, like, you don't have sex outside of marriage. So, like, you're 22 and you think you're in love, well, maybe you should just get married, And so I think we're both so thankful that we did get married to each other then, but also can look at it and go, man, there's so many other ways to do this for other people. And so, as we start, are working out all the things that you're working out in your 20s, both of my siblings pass away from drug-related kind of things. So one was a really clear kind of overdose, and the other was a more mysterious kind of situation where we don't really know what happened. But I think that is the moment, especially when I lost my first brother, Grant, like when he passed away first, my younger brother, Grant, when he was sick, and he had a couple overdoses too that were really serious. And that was when I feel like I started growing up. And that's also when I think I started knowing myself.
How old were you at that point?
So probably when Grant overdosed, I was maybe 27, and he was in a coma for several months here in Nashville. Yeah. Then he passed away in 2008. So I was maybe like, maybe 26 and 28 when he passed. And so those moments, I remember being at Vanderbilt Hospital when he was in a coma and going up the elevator and just asking, like, what am I so afraid of in my own life? Like, the scariest thing that could ever happen, to someone, like someone being so near death, is right in front of us. I'm standing next to my mom. We're going up to go visit him. We would just spend most of those days in the hospital as much as they would let us in ICU. And like, it sort of was the thing that for someone who I just bring so much anxiety and worry to the party, it was that first real sort of check on that was like, what are you scared of? And it's not to shame anyone that deals with that, but it's like, you're literally looking at the scariest thing, which is true loss, and getting up on a stage and playing some songs, or walking into a writing room and being brave for those few hours and taking the risk. And like, this is manageable, scary. Like, you can do this. And then after Grant passed away in 2008, and then my brother Sean died in 2009, I think it was like, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, once you cross over into that kind of loss and you've seen it, it's almost like there was a whole world operating that you had never known about before. And I would say the gift in that, which is where I live a lot, is your empathy towards other people, your ability to extend generosity to them in whatever they might be going through. At least for me, was just grown and multiplied in such a way where I could you just could look with different eyes upon people and their suffering and whatever they might be going through, because you've just tasted it. And it's so, I feel like this is a word that's used so much, but it's very humbling. It's humanizing. It's rooting you. It's grounding you in like, what really matters, and in just the similarity of like life and loss. And so that thing, which that big chunk of loss that happened in my late 20s, that shaped so much, I think, of me, of what I search for on a daily basis, like why I get up and what I'm looking for connection-wise and what I want to write about. Not specifically, I really don't write a lot. I wrote a lot about loss specifically right then, but it really less so now. It's just much more about humanity. And so that's that thing that just, and I feel like maybe even made me an artist too. It's like just turns you around and connects you with others.
Yeah. When I was a kid, first of all, I was given up for adoption at birth, and I grew up in this family that like looked very different than me, acted very different than me, thought very different. And my father was an alcoholic who raised me. And so I grew up in a household where also there was a lot of isolation, where I would retreat to my room, as 10, 12, 13-year-old. And everybody in my house played music. I was the only person. There was 5 brothers and sisters that we had. My mom played organ in the church. They all played instruments except for me. And I was the only one who ended up doing it. And I think that part of it is that I found this thing in music that was healing for me. That was that thing that could be there when nobody else could. And I just want to know, like, at what age did music for you start to be a thing where it's not like necessarily you started like, oh, I want to play piano lessons, Mom, or whatever, but just that you felt it. Like, where was it? What was it? Was there a song? Was there a moment in church? Was there something that happened to you that you really felt it?
Well, first of all, just thank you for, and I think this is what's so beautiful about the work that you're doing on this podcast. Just sharing your story and sharing it again and opening it up. It's just a very, I think that is the most generous thing we can do for each other, is show ourselves.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I thank you for just showing a little bit of yourself to me this morning. It's funny, when you make your life in music, a lot of people ask you questions about the songs that kind of shaped you, or like the moment you knew. I'm sure you've gotten that. It's like, and as musicians, like I love getting to talk to another musician about a question like this, because I think music was both escape. Like it was both like the place to go, maybe hide or be known by, feel known. But it was also, it was also like play. It was like the fun. It was, my really early memories, I grew up in kind of like a fancy church, like where you have to really dress up and like suits and ties and stuff like that. But around Christmas time, they would have this, on Christmas Eve, they would have a children's service where they would do a lot of carols, and it was a little bit more casual. So it was like everyone wasn't in their Sunday best. It was a little more relaxed. And it's probably one of those where I remember the story maybe more than the moment, but I was just like singing really loudly to the Christmas carols. Christmas music are a lot of my early memories, in church too, but just like Christmas songs. And Mom always listened to like Bing Crosby in the car. And I mean, the quirkiest little Christmas songs, like Melakaliki Maka, like songs like that were like in my early fabric. But I was so loud, and I was singing so loud that this lady in the row behind us like tapped my mom on the shoulder. And it was like one of those moments where you think you're about to get in trouble and you panic. And her name was Roxy Gibson, and she was this like very famous elder and children's book author in Nashville. Wow. She tapped my mom on the shoulder and she was like, get that little one in the choir. So a moment where I thought I was about to get called out, like I was about to get in trouble, and I was actually getting like blessed, like make that noise, like be you. Yes. Yeah, that's actually was it. Yeah. So, I do think a lot about like Christmas music was huge for me.
How do you think you were able to make it when your brothers like just found a different path? How do you think you were able to make it out of the house? What were the things as a teenager for you growing up in the same household that didn't lead you down that path? What was the things along your way that helped you to not be that?
I think about this a lot, and I don't know that I have a very good answer. One is like I was like good at things that adults care about, which I do not think is necessarily if I get to be a mom, I don't know that I will put the same emphasis on it, but I was like good at school. I followed the rules, mostly because I was scared of getting in trouble. And so in some ways I was kind of like out of the fray, and I would get, affirmation and positive affirmation from adults. And I don't know that I think about Grant. I'm like, man, he was hilarious. He was so funny, so goofy, so silly, and very disarming. People just liked him. He was very charismatic, but I don't think he had any idea that he was any of those things. So part of me is like, it's just so important for us to tell the truth about the people in our lives.
Yeah.
And tell them
how awesome they are.
Tell them about it. Tell them about it. So I wonder, about that. I think sometimes too, I think that being a woman, being a girl, I think in some ways maybe protected me from some of the dynamics in the house that were really made it hard to be a boy, made it hard to be a young man. And I don't know, I think it's funny to think about what role music played. Gosh, because it was such a motivator. And, even though this is a wild career path, it's not like, oh yeah, you're definitely going to be, I'm still like, am I successful? Like, I don't know. Like I can pay my bills. That's awesome. But it is a purpose. And I think not having a purpose must be so painful.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your purpose in music?
Ooh, okay. Now I don't know.
I hear some things in there. I'll tell you what I hear.
Okay.
If you don't mind. I hear empowerment, like when I see the video that you did for Suit, which is really super powerful. Just so many of your songs speak to being yourself and being a strong person in a really fucked up world at times, and world that's really challenging, and finding your light, finding your voice, finding your vision. And that's amazing. That's super needed right now, is that just that sense of like, it's okay, I'm me, I can be confident in my, warts and my, my rip sweatpants, to walk out of the house. It's like, I feel like we need that kind of vision in the world more than ever today, of just people speaking of their failures and how they overcame them. And I hear that in what you do.
Thanks. I wonder too if maybe this makes me a fraud, but I wonder if there's a way where in the music that we get to make, as much as it's true, as much as it's honest for us, it's also aspirational. It's like, maybe this isn't who I am, but it's who I want to be. Or maybe this isn't how I always get to show up, but I'm getting closer to this.
Sure. Write yourself into the movie.
Yeah. And so I think that for me, the music is always like a place where I get to play and sort of, play and try on and see like, how would it feel to be a little more this today, or a little more, or show a little bit more of this side? It's like, I think that's the other thing at times. I wonder if you have felt this in your career. I think specifically like for women in country, it can be kind of like people want you to be one thing because it's just much more manageable. Like, oh, that's the girl that does this. So I don't know if you felt similar, if you've ever felt that like in your world.
Absolutely.
But, you know, getting to express that wider version of yourself is like a really beautiful, powerful thing about making music.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, because I'm the same way. I write the way that I want the world to be, or the way that I want my life to be. And it always starts from places that are, you know, challenging or painful, or sometimes from incredible joy, you know. But I write songs that have transformation, that like I started out this way and I ended up differently than that. And, you know, I hear that like in, the title escapes me, but Famous, I'm going to make you famous in my own town. You know, it's like, I don't think like it's literally you, like I'm going to go around town doing it, but it's like this feeling of like empowerment of somebody did me dirty and I'm going to like find a way to like get back at them, at least in this song. And I'm probably not going to actually go do that, but it's the feeling that I have inside of me of like this bit of revenge, but it's also like a sense of healing of like, I got to move on and I got to do some symbolic action to get through it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the power that I hear in your songs.
It's funny in country, you can do almost anything to somebody in a song. Yeah. I mean, you can really exact some revenge on your man in country music. But yeah, I think that's the other thing. Like, you know, we get to play a lot, right? On stage and in songs. It's like, and with words. I think that's the other thing. And as a more of a like country songwriters, I think we can kind of get too hung up on it too, but playing and rearranging words and making words mean different things and kind of winking at the audience with that, like that's, to me, like that's what Famous is about. It's kind of what Suit's about too. It's like just kind of getting to play with it and turn it around and see what else you can make it mean, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah.
When you started to do stuff with Apple, was there like a point in your life or in your career or in the last couple of years where you're like, man, I got to do something different? Like, because I know for me in the last couple of years with everything that's happened with the pandemic and quarantine and whatnot, it's like, I'm thinking of how can I do what I do and be involved in what I love in a way that I've never been before. You know, I started doing online concerts every month, started doing, you know, more podcasting than I'd ever done, started doing things like Cameo and just connecting more deeply through social media and more often, and just finding ways to connect with the audience that I have in a new way.
Can I just stop you right there?
Sure.
And I'm not sure that this, I really, really like, and I'm very charmed by the drive that you have to connect in that way. Yeah. Like, I think, and this is a place where like you are dispelling like the reputation of a rock star persona, like in a really powerful way, which I think we've all been around those personas in the music industry that are like very cool. And like, it feels aspirational to be like that cool and live that life that's that fancy and untouched by normal shit. Yeah. But I just think it is so cool to hear you talk about the ways that you've embraced like online concerts, Cameo, like things that are, I just think that's very, very cool. And I find that really inspiring.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I'd go to concerts and I would get like the cheapest seat in the farthest row away. And we'd try and sneak down a little bit closer. And always be a point in the show where some artist would like point in our general direction of like row triple T or whatever section we were in, you know, and go, yo, and point our way and sing some long note or something. And I'd go, yo, bro, did you see that? He just fucking looked right at us. Did you see that? You know, and I'd feel like, man, like, wow, like the artist saw me, you know? And so as a musician, I always wanted to make the people who came to my shows feel that way, you know? And that's why I get in the audience. I spend hours after each show talking to fans, and I go out on the street and play acoustic some nights before shows. And, it's like I'm trying to find ways to do that because it changed me. Like I remember being this kid who never thought I'd leave this little town that I grew up in and never thought that I'd be even be involved in music. But the musicians that I heard, they made me believe that you could say what you felt and you could share it with the world. And you could, even if you just knew 3 chords or even if you were just scratching with the turntable, whatever it was, that you could say really what it was in your heart and what you felt. And that when you did that, other people would go, oh, that's how I feel. I get it. We kind of talked about that before.
Yeah.
And now you're doing it in new ways, with Apple Music. And how does that feel for you?
Yeah. You asked, if I went through that season of like, looking for something else and for me, that actually happened. It happened a little earlier. Like I left like my major label deal in 2016 because at the time I just didn't feel like I could put any music out. And it's like, I've got this big fancy record deal and I can't even like release music. Like, what am I doing? And so in that moment, I left, I put out a project independently and I started this podcast that was called This Nashville Life. And really it's just for people trying to figure it out. And we would say it was part love letter, part hate mail, part how-to guide. And we'd have people on like demystify like publishing or songwriting or like how does a song get cut or what's a radio tour? Like just from my experience of kind of doing it. So we started to like, it was very, very empowering for me in that moment to be like, I'm going to be the person that tells my story. And I'm going to take the few things that I've learned trying to do this over the last, 8 years and try and share that and see like if there's a community of people that find this valuable or whatever. So, and in that way too, it was like I was doing an interview, just truly out of my own genuine curiosity. And God bless those people that were on the podcast in the early days, because the interviews were so obscenely long because I would just be so excited about what I was learning from them. And I mean, now we knock out a big artist interview. It's like we might get 30 minutes and it's like in and out and that's all you got, So that was kind of where I feel like where I got this chance to sort of reset and look at the other ways that I could literally use my voice to talk about things that were important, to let people in on the music industry, like invitation. Like that's huge. That's huge. It's confusing. Yeah. It's very confusing.
So confusing.
And then what was so odd, and this is, I've really not ever told this story. I told this internally for like a private Apple thing, but it's a story that just feels like this little like universe God wink to me. So every year I pick like a word at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm actually behind, like I haven't locked in my word this year, but in 2019, the word was fruit.
Okay.
So I was like, man, I've just been after this dream for so long. And I feel like I've made progress and I have respect of people, but like, I need to see some fruit for all of this labor. Like I need to see.
Show me a sign that it's something's working. All this hard work is mounting to something.
And so what was cool about that year is that was actually the year I got to put out my debut album. And so that album came out, but also in October of that year, Favorite Colors. But the other thing that happened was Apple came to the table and they were like, look, we're launching this show. And at the time they didn't even share with me, like that came later that year, but like, hey, we're going to launch the show. We want you to host it. We want you to do interviews with artists. And it was all because of this little podcast that I just had done for the hell of it because I wanted to.
You followed your heart, yeah.
Yeah, I followed my curiosity. That's the other key for me. It's like, if I'm curious about it, like that's something. And then it became, we're actually launching this whole country station and we want you to be our anchor for that station. And I mean, at the time, like I didn't have healthcare. I mean, cause it's just like music is expensive. I mean,
yes.
I sold my pickup truck to afford my Today Show appearance so I could take my band to New York and play when my record was coming out. It's like, it's crazy expensive. So So fruit is my word this year, and I'm clinging to it. The album's coming, and by the end of the year, I had this offer from Apple to take this full-time role with them. And I was like, I asked for fruit, and God gave me an apple. Like, what? And so, you know, at the time I was also really struggling with like,
that's not the first apple that's been given, by the way.
No, it isn't. But it felt like one of those things where I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know what the season's going to be. I don't know if I'll ever, you know, and this is where I struggle with my own shit, but like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to make music in the same way that I got to make it before, where every day was about writing.
Yeah.
And every day was, or every day was on the road, or you know, I don't know if that will be in this new life. But man, I mean, we are, you know, we're hoping to put out a record this year. We know what some of the music is, but that was just, I don't know. It was kind of like, it was just a real gift, a new chance to connect and make my life around music. It just, that's all I can say. Looking back after the last couple of years of getting to do this, it's like, man, like I couldn't have dreamed it up, and it just happened.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to have that feeling, especially when you've been doing it for a while and you just like, you're knocking on the door and you're like beating on the door and you're trying to kick the door and then something just in the front yard goes, hey, yo, why are you knocking on the door? Come over here.
I'm right here.
There's more fun under this tree, you know? It's really cool. And it kind of brings me to the final question that I have for you, which is the one that I ask everybody who's on this show. It's like, we're living in this crazy world, this crazy time, and there's so much, you know, just that people that can make you feel shitty in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And make you feel like you're losing your sense of self, you're losing your sense of just being a human being. And what is it that keeps you human? How do you stay human? How do you hold on to your that which makes you Kelleigh Bannen?
I love, how many different answers you have gotten for this question. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I think for me, the way to stay human is being in touch with my frailty, being in touch with the places where I'm not a badass, or the moments where I'm not perfect and it's okay, because it just reminds me that I need others. It reminds me that I can't do it alone, and who would want to? And it gives me generosity towards other people when I see them in their human moments.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I really feel that from you. And that's also a great sort of just send off of just a testimony of the way things do work in Nashville when they do work at their best. It's like, it's more than any other music scene in the world that I've ever experienced. It's collaborative, and people come together and they play their roles, they play their part to make the whole thing work. And everybody from the people who are driving the bus to the people who are, you know, writing songs, to our engineers, to our managers, who are media people, podcasters, whatever, and to all the way to fans, all working together to achieve that togetherness that you get when you feel that song finally, you know, bring all these hearts and minds together. So thank you for being a great ambassador of your city that you are a mile from right now. Like within, that's so cool. And
come visit us.
Yeah, everybody come out to Nashville. It's a great place. I've had a chance. Our management is in Nashville, and so we've had a chance in the last few years to spend more time there than I ever have before. And if you're thinking of some place to go travel to, I mean, I sound like I should be doing this for the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, but man, I mean, if you can't fly to where I am in Bali or some Jamaica or someplace that you've always been wanting to go like that, just hop on a flight or drive down the road and go spend time in Nashville, because it really is a great place place for all kinds of music. That's the other thing is it's not just country music. There's so many different.
It's a very rich and cool music scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kelleigh, thank you so much for being on the show this week. It's been great just hearing your story and getting to know you through both your music as well as your words here.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I really loved it.
Folks can go to kelleighbannen.com, or I presume you're on all social channels and all that stuff. Spotify, go there. Go to Apple Music Country, and you can check out the Kelleigh Bannen Show and Today's Country there as well. And I'm Michael Franti. On behalf of the great Gibson Guitars, thank you for presenting the show, Gibson. And we'll see you next week on the Stay Human podcast. Peace.